Sure thing. Oh, yeah. Secret.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think I knock you in the head. When I'm looking at it. Are you coming here?
Yeah.
Do you want me to scoot down? You want me to take this here? Maybe this side.
One Chicago 7. It's called the Schultz Bakery, believe it or not. For years, half a century, we've been calling it the Schultz Bakery.
Yeah.
But it's completely wrapped in carving, fitting them. So it was one of our Chicago 7. So we just wanted to share that with you. We didn't say yesterday. All right. Absolutely.
Beautiful. We have 5 commissioners and quorum if you want to start.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's 12:45. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Boatright.
Present.
Commissioner.
Present.
Commissioner Tolliver.
Present.
Commissioner Rubin.
Present.
Okay, and Commissioner Bird is not here yet. Commissioner Paulson's not here yet, but we have a forum. Chairman Wong was not able to attend today's meeting and has asked that I step in for him today. I am Gabriel Ignacio Chikiewicz, the Vice Chairman of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. And I'd like to ask anyone wishing to make a statement on today's agenda to complete a public comment card and give the card to a member of the staff. Comment cards are available at the door. As a courtesy to other individuals wishing to offer comments, we ask that members of the general public limit your statements to 3 minutes or less. When the time comes for public comment on the individual item on the agenda, we'll call the names on the cards and ask you to come forward to the microphone and make your statement. Please state your name and the interest, organization, company you represent, if any. And we'll begin with our first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, our regular meeting of February 8th, 2024. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Tolliver. Although, Commissioner Bear? Yes. Commissioner Rubin?
Yes.
Okay. Motion, let the record, I'd like to add to the record that Commissioner Hughes is here. The minutes, would you like to vote on the minutes for the last meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and I'm a yes, and the motion carries unanimously. The minutes we posted on the commission's website. Our second item on the agenda is the final landmark recommendation for the John B. Murphy Memorial in the 42nd Ward, 50 East Erie Street in Alderman Brendan Riley's ward. And I would like to call on Matt Crawford for this one.
Thank you, Chairman Jukevich. We started the landmark designation of the Murphy Memorial in January, and last month you heard a favorable report from Commissioner Boatright. And since then, the Driehaus Museum, the owner of the property, has consented formally to the landmark designation. So you can now consider a final recommendation to City Council. Murphy is located at 50 East Erie Street in Chicago's near north side community area. So of the 7 possible criteria for landmark designation, you preliminarily found in January that this building meets 5, including number 1 for heritage. The memorial was built for the American College of Surgeons, an international professional medical association of surgeons and surgical team members. Founded this organization in 1913 in Chicago, and it's still headquartered here. Prior to the establishment of the American College of Surgeons, the practice of surgery was risky as it lacked professional education and standards of care. This 1875 painting by Thomas Egan depicts the early surgical practices that the college sought to reform. Surgeons operating in black frock coats without nursing support or basic sanitation. A few years after Eakin's painting, a photographer captured this image of an operation in Chicago at the Women's Hospital. Advances include support at the operating table with nurses and personal protective equipment, albeit primitive. These were the kinds of things the college was asking for. The Murphy Memorial became the first headquarters of the College of Surgeons. In addition to serving as a memorial to surgeon John B. Murphy, who I will discuss shortly, the memorial's auditorium was used by the college for meetings and clinical congresses. And above the auditorium, there was this research library, skylit reading room that was attracting researchers and surgeons from across the nation. In addition to the building's scientific history, we also found that the memorial meets criterion 3 for its association with significant persons. And those would be Chicago surgeons, Franklin Martin and John B. Murphy, who founded the American College of Surgeons as a means of improving surgical practice for better patient outcomes. They were both also educators. Dr. Martin established the Chicago Postgraduate Medical School and the Journal of Surgery, Gynecology, and Obstetrics, which is still in publication. And Dr. Murphy was known for his classroom operations for med students, like this 1902 operation, which he led at Mercy Hospital. You also found preliminarily the building is an outstanding work of architecture. The Murphy's exterior design represents a rare local example of French Renaissance style architecture that was popular in Paris in the late 19th century. The building is abundantly detailed with crisp cut limestone ornament drawn from classical architecture, including the tall carved pediment at left and the carved floral swags at right. Patinaed bronze doors are a focal point of the exterior. They were cast by the Tiffany Studios of New York and sculpted by Charles Keck, who designed the panels to reflect important figures, events in surgery. On the interior, the primary space is this 1,000-seat auditorium located on the piano nobile level of the building. Elegantly finished with marble, highly ornate plaster, carved woodwork, and architectural metal. The ceiling of the auditorium is topped with this dome. The stained glass window at right was designed by Ann Willett of the Willett Studios, a nationally significant art glass firm in Philadelphia. There are 2 ancillary spaces to the auditorium that we recommend be included as significant. These are the anteroom at left and the lobby at right. The building also meets criterion 5 as the work of a significant Chicago architectural firm. In this case, it was Marshall and Fox, an important practice in Chicago in the early decades of the 20th century. Some of Marshall and Fox's best known work shaped the development of DuSable Lakeshore Drive and Michigan Avenue, such as the Drake and Blackstone hotels, which are also both designated Chicago landmarks. The practice, particularly Marshall, was known for taking inspiration from historic classical architecture, which they did for the Murphy Memorial, which is clearly inspired by this memorial chapel at left, built in Paris in 1901. Finally, there is that rarely used criterion number 7 that applies to the Murphy Memorial. Its highly ornamented facade, monumental scale, and slight setback from the street, the Murphy holds its own in a neighborhood now dominated by tall skyscrapers. With respect to the integrity criterion, the Murphy possesses excellent physical integrity on its exterior and interior. Till last year, the building was owned by the College of Surgeons, which maintained the building impeccably. In 2003, the college added an elevator in connection to the Driehaus Museum and the Nickerson Mansion to the west of the building. These don't impair the building's integrity. Recently, in 2022, the Driehaus Museum acquired the Murphy Memorial and anticipating landmark designation and rehabilitation, Last June, the Treehouse Museum came to the program committee with a proposed exterior and interior rehabilitation with a new rooftop addition. I just wanted to show the existing views at left compared with renderings of the rooftop addition, which is under construction right now. This view looking northeast with the addition largely obscured by the 2003 elevator. Here we are looking north at the front elevation with the rooftop addition being not visible due to its setback. And here we're looking northwest with the addition being minimally visible above the common brick secondary elevation. PRC approved this project with conditions, and like I said, the work is underway. The Murphy Memorial is located in the 42nd Ward, and Alderman Riley is aware of the proposed designation. You have preliminarily defined the significant features as all exterior elevations, including roof lines of the building. And on the interior, the major spaces at the piano nobile level, that would be the lobby leading to the auditorium from the bronze doors, the anterooms west of the auditorium, and of course, the auditorium itself, all shown in the hatched plan drawing. So you have a final landmark recommendation to that effect before you. We do have representatives of the Treehouse Museum here, as well as their architects. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Matt. Any questions, Commissioners, for Matt? Seeing none, like to, would the owners like to make a statement?
I'll make a statement. Clark Christensen with Antonovich Associates, our firm has had the pleasure and privilege of working with the Treehouse entities since, well, going back to 1992. Ransom Cable Mansion, but with this particular property since 2004. When the Nickerson Mansion was purchased by Richard Treehouse, and we did a joint renovation of the Nickerson Mansion and Murphy Memorial building. So we're exceptionally pleased to have, almost 20 more years under our belt with this collaboration. And we're really looking forward to the day, not too many weeks from now, when the construction project will be finished and the museum staff will be moving their offices from the Nickerson Mansion over to the Murphy, and space that has not been utilized for almost 20 years now will be back in circulation. One of Chicago's great buildings will be a really vibrant reintroduction, shall we say, to East Erie Street. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions for the architect? Thank you. And there being no more questions, we'll move to the public comment period. And so far, there is one comment card that's been submitted. Mr. Wardmiller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman. I'm Ward Miller. I'm the Richard H. Treehouse Executive Director of Innovation Chicago. We're honored to be here today. We enthusiastically support this landmark designation by the Department of Planning and Development for this final landmark recommendation and the Chicago landmark designation of the John B. Murphy Memorial building located at 50 East Erie Street on Chicago's near north side. The Murphy Memorial is a spectacular structure designed by architect Benjamin Marshall of the firm of Marshall and Fox in the French Renaissance style for the American College of Surgeons in 1926. The red rated building, one of only 200 such red rated buildings in the city, as noted in the Chicago Historic Resources Survey, has long been recognized by residents of the near north side and also within the architecture and preservation community as a fine quality building worthy of landmark designation. The structure has essentially been a landmark in waiting for many years, perhaps decades, and the official Chicago landmark designation and recognition of the building and its history has been well received and recognized. With that said, many of us are grateful for this designation, honor, and protections offered for this incredible structure, which also coincides with the 150th anniversary of architect Benjamin Marshall's birth and the 80th anniversary of his death. The Treehouse Museum's expansion and ownership of the Murphy Memorial will provide a fabulous reuse of this building as an amazing cultural institution for downtown Chicago and will further the museum's programming and exhibitions. Both the Nickerson Mansion Driehaus Museum and the Murphy Memorial have coexisted and prospered under wonderful relationships, almost requiring one another for more than a century for their own survival, realizing the incredible development pressures over the years and to this day, and both will finally be recognized as a Chicago landmark. We'd also like to share that the acquisition of the Murphy Memorial to become part of the Richard H. Driehaus Museum Complex and a designated landmark is a fulfillment of a vision of philanthropist Richard H. Driehaus, who passed almost 3 years ago today. Richard very much shared with us at Preservation Chicago that he wanted to see this building as part of the museum complex. He also very much desired to see this building designated and protected in perpetuity as a Chicago landmark. This wish and vision of Mr. Driehaus has now been fulfilled by the institution that bears his name and by this commission and by our city. We at Preservation Chicago enthusiastically support the designation of the Murphy Memorial Building, its historic Erie Street facade and elevations, as well as the significant spaces in its beautiful auditorium space as a Chicago landmark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Does anyone who hasn't completed a comment card wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for discussion from the commission. Any points of discussion? No? All right. Seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the final recommendation to City Council for the John B. Murphy Memorial at 50 East Erie Street.
So moved.
All right, moved by Commissioner Hughes, seconded by Commissioner Ferris. Do the roll call. Commissioner Boatright.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
Yes. And Commissioner Rubin.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. And Commissioner Burns, welcome Commissioner Burns back into the meeting. For the record, Commissioner Burns is here and recused herself from the previous item. And we will move to item number 3, which is the report from the Department of Planning and Development on Hyde Park Union Church, 600 South Woodlawn Avenue, in the 5th Ward, Alderman Desmond Yance.
Sure. The proposed designation of Hyde Park Union Church does not raise any concerns or issues from a planning perspective. So I don't have a formal report for the commission, but I would like to state for the record that I recommend approval of the proposed designation.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. Are there any questions? For Commissioner Boatright? Seeing none, I'll ask for comments from the public, and we'll begin with the comment cards that have been submitted. If you haven't submitted a comment card, please do so. The first comment card is Mr. Jack Spicer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner Boatright and the commissioners. I had the privilege of living around the corner from the Union Church for 40 years. And it was an everyday pleasure to see the building. What was most meaningful to me is to benefit from the community of care that grew up in that building for many, many years and was strong and rich. So I'm going to make a proposal today that we have an 8th criterion for landmarking, and that is community. And these communities of care are very fragile. They're much more fragile than the buildings themselves that they house. But they're a tremendous benefit to the city at large and to the neighboring community. And I would like, as we move forward as a preservation community, and this body is extremely important to that movement, I want us to think more and more about how these buildings affect community and how they preserve those values for people of all ages, all times, all races, all religions, and that's an extremely important element of what we do at preservation. So I hope that this landmarking moves through for the Union Church, and it will be a pleasure to be part of that movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next comment card is Max Chavez.
Good afternoon, Max Chavez, Director of Research and Special Projects at Preservation Chicago. I just want to offer some brief comments to our support for the landmarking of Hyde Park Union Church. This is a very important 1906 church designed by a very significant architect, James Gamble Rogers. And it's a crucial historic neighborhood resource, as Jeff just said. It has a history that's heavily intertwined with the nearby university and an exceptional facade that hits on the grand designs that Rogers would go on to be really known for in later years. And it's, you know, it's, as mentioned, was a long time, resource for Hyde Park faithful and beyond. So just on those merits alone, it feels clear that this, will be a wonderful landmark. Last month, I remember there was a mention of potentially landmarking, interiors as well. We continue to support that, especially given that there's glass, in this building. Amid so many church closures as of late, we've lost so much, art, statuary, and art glass and, paintings that get sold off or lost in the demolition. So it'd be really wonderful to continue to consider protecting all of these pieces of Christ landmark designation. So thank you very much for your time, and all your effort in bringing this to the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. If there's, I don't believe there's anyone else wishing to comment on this item. There being none, I'll ask for any discussion points from the commission. As there is no report to accept, the action item before us is a vote to continue with the designation process by requesting consent from the property owners. The points of discussion, seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to take the next steps in the designation process to request consent from the property owners. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Boatright, seconded by Commissioner Burns. We'll do the roll call. Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Rubin?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Tolliver?
Yes.
Is a yes, and Commissioner Fair?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a yes. And the motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move to item number 4, which is the preliminary landmark recommendation of the Rolla Theater, the 11th Ward, 3508 to 3518 South Halton Street in Alderman East Ward, and Matt Crawford has the report.
Thank you, Chairman Jacobitz. Commissioners, we've all seen the news recently, news coverage in Chicago about the Ramova Theater, which has been the subject of a fabulous interior and exterior restoration, which has transformed the building into a live performance, music venue, brewery, and restaurants. That huge restoration addressed decades of vacancy and neglect, and it was aided by more than $9 million in tax increment financing from the city, grants from the state, and the historic tax credits. So for your consideration today, we recommend a preliminary landmark recommendation for the Ramova Theater. It is located mid-block on Halsted, south of 35th Street, in the commercial heart of the Bridgeport neighborhood. We recommend the Ramova meets 2 criteria for landmark designation, including 1 for heritage. We usually don't associate historic movie theaters with ethnicity, or the stockyards, but the Ramova has strong ties to the Lithuanian community. After 1900, Lithuanians came to Chicago in increasing numbers. Many found work in the stockyards. Indeed, Upton Sinclair's 1906 novel, The Jungle, revolves around the life of Lithuanian immigrant working in the stockyards named Jurgis Rutkus. Many Lithuanians settled in nearby Bridgeport, such that by 1914, the neighborhood was the largest urban settlement in Lithuanians in the world, even outside Lithuania. After 1880, as streetcars made their way up and down Halsted and 35th Street, that intersection became a thoroughfare known as Lithuanian Downtown. And so it was here that Lithuanian businessman and Bridgeport resident Jacob Maskoliūnas began construction of the Ramova Theater block in 1928. Advertisements in the Lithuanian newspaper Margutis invited readers to invest in shares in the theater and boasted that the 1,300-seat theater would be the pride of Chicago's Lithuanian community. So it opened on August 18th, 1929. The name Ramova translates in Lithuanian as peaceful place. The photo at right from 1930 shows the theater's original marquee and blade sign. Shortly after the dedication of the theater, the national economy entered the Great Depression, and Mr. Maskoliūnas sold the building at a loss in 1939. Under new ownership, improvements were made, including the new marquee and signage that were added in 1944 and which survive today, restored. Even with these updates, the Ramova continued to struggle financially. Smaller neighborhood theaters like the Remova had to compete with large chains controlled by Hollywood corporations. First-run movies played at chain theaters before playing at local theaters like the Remova. Consequently, the Remova became a second-run theater until ultimately it closed in 1985. The commercial block or commercial wing of the building continued to survive and house such famous businesses as the Remova Grill, which you see it right. In addition to this heritage, we believe the Remova also meets criterion for architecture. As you can see from the Sanborn map, Theater Auditorium is set behind a street-facing lobby and a wing of storefronts. It's a practical combination of commercial with entertainment. The Remova is a fine example of what we call a theater block, a historic building type found in Chicago's commercial districts, combining entertainment and commerce in a single building. The two-story masonry theater and commercial blocks share some terracotta ornament and internal communication, but the building is essentially a work in two parts. The star of the show, of course, is the facade of the theater, symmetrical composition with a Spanish Baroque architectural treatment, all rendered in buff-colored terracotta and all from 1929. The character-defining features of the Baroque include the swirling arabesques, niches, finials, twisting columns, cartouches, and scallop shells, all seen at the Remova. On top of this historicist fantasy, we have the blade sign and marquee from 1944 in green enamel and chrome with chaser and neon lights. The combination of this art moderne signage and the Baroque offer a study in contrast that lends the Remova its distinctive presence in Bridgeport. The commercial block is arranged into 6 bays and is topped by a low mansard roof above a terracotta parapet. Each bay holds a single storefront at ground level with non-historic windows above. Second bay from the north end of the commercial block projects slightly and is entirely clad in terracotta. A recessed entrance is centered in this bay, and that leads to the building's upper floor commercial loft space, which at one time housed the boxing school. We recommend to you that the Remova meets the integrity criterion. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've all seen in the news, the Remova has been completely restored after decades of deferred maintenance. The photo at left is relatively recent. You can see the transformation. You know, in terms of integrity, because the restoration took advantage of federal tax credits, the project was subject by the Secretary of Interior standards for preservation and was reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. The restoration included the interior of the theater, which now serves as a performance venue. The pre-restoration photos at left show the extensive damage to plaster finishes in the auditorium. It was caused by just decades of water infiltration. The building is located in the 11th Ward, and Alderwoman Lee has provided a letter of support for the designation. We recommend that significant historical and architectural features be preliminarily identified as all exterior elevations, including roof lines of the building, including the blade sign and marquee from 1944. You have a preliminary landmark recommendation to that effect. Here to answer any questions, I believe representatives from the ownership are here as well.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt by the commission?
Just one question, I know there were a lot of modifications to the auditorium space and of all the seating was removed, but was there any consideration for the lobby space to be a part of, what was being landmarked, since it seems like that was similar to the original?
When, if you could go back, when we started to look at this I think it's 2020, we started to look at this project. Our feeling was that there was so much damage to those finishes, much of it, resting on the floor. And we understood that much of it would then need to be replaced. At the time, I don't believe the developer was pursuing the federal tax credits. And so I don't believe they were interested in a high level restoration of the interior. But because they chose to do that, they have, the federal tax credits do require a very high bar in terms of interior treatments. So that is something that we could consider.
Having now seen the photo on the left, it makes a little bit more sense. Why that maybe wasn't already included. So,
Yeah, that was our feeling at the time, and of course, it looks gorgeous. They've done a fantastic job.
Thank you, Commissioner Fair. Any other questions for Matt before we?
Yes, adding on to Commissioner Fair's question. So, what would, just for the benefit of the public, what would be the advantages to the property owner if the landmark recommendation was expanded to include what we're looking at now, parts of the interior?
I don't think any particular advantage accrue in terms of financial, anything like that. What it does is ensure, when they've done the federal tax credits, and that means any work on the building has to be reviewed to make sure that they're maintaining those interiors. That's for 5 years.
Mhm.
A landmark designation of the interior would be in perpetuity. So the benefit is really for the citizens of Chicago to ensure that they can continue to enjoy this space. And this is the kind of theater space that was called atmospheric. The idea that you would go into this space and you would be transformed, in this case, to basically a Spanish village. It's very similar to the Music Box. It's often considered a sister to the Music Box. So that would be the advantage mostly for citizens to enjoy this.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes.
Do we know how the owner feels about landmarking? They
Well,
said he
you're-
doesn't
I believe the owner is here. Would like to make a statement?
Hi, my name is John Reynolds. I'm with the development team. I wish I shared the enthusiasm that some of the other projects have for this process. It's a city-led landmarks process. It's not something that we were seeking at all. We're here for cooperation and pursuant to the redevelopment agreement that we had in place, which happened before federal tax credits or the state tax credits were involved. We understand, we're very proud of what's out there today. The pictures don't show the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that thing for years and years and years. We're really proud of it. We think maintaining it in this way makes a lot of sense. But to create a landmarks, especially going in the interior, creates a undue burden on the project overall. This is a non-for-profit group and a local husband and wife team that own it, and it feels like that would be just a little bit too much for them to maintain forever. We are here in cooperation. We appreciate all the things the city has done for us. As I've mentioned, one thing I'd like the commission to consider is rather than landmarking all elevations of the building, to focus on the historic components of it. In keeping with national parks and the State Historic Preservation Office and how they view the project. We just don't want to be caught in a situation where on the back side of the building or in our loading dock where something happens and all of a sudden they're penalized or have to jump through hoops that aren't required. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Commissioner, so any follow-up questions?
Yeah, that was very helpful. And I asked that question because sometimes it can be, more of a hassle to maintain interiors over time, which is why I think most of our landmarking process does mostly cover exteriors.
Mhm.
And in the case of the loading dock or the areas that's not considered, the historic elevations. I think it's still important to make sure that this community, this group is included in the process of whatever is happening to the building in the future, which is why we usually extend it to all elevations. So I'm gonna have to side with the staff on that one, but I do hear your concerns and understand where you're coming from.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Burns for asking the question. So I do have a question. Does that mean that this is not with your consent, that the interiors are being?
Absolutely not the interiors.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was not our preference that the building would be landmarked at all. The exterior elevations on the side. We're here, see cooperation with that, but definitely not the interior.
Commissioner Burns.
We've not seen photos of it, but I guess for the vintage of this building, most of the other facades are probably brick, I would assume.
Yeah, you can see some of it on the side of the building. It's the Chicago Common. The majority of it on the alley side is just a hodgepodge of brick that was, there's no uniformity to it at all.
Yeah,
Um,
and I asked him, I mean, doesn't seem like a significant or ridiculous burden to maintain that if all the exterior, were landmarks. So that's what I'm put forth. I also don't, based off the site plans that we have, that significant commercial opportunities existing on the other side, that, modification we're envisioning in the future. So I'm trying to just tease that out, see where maybe some of that concern is for all of the innovations.
It's just being able to, it's asking a group that isn't accustomed to going through this to follow the rules and make sure that they're checking every single box before they, do something that then puts them in trouble.
If I could just weigh in, your practice here is if somebody were to apply for a permit at the rear or side common brick elevation, your practice has always been to regard those as secondary and tertiary. You have a different level of treatment that applies to those. The other thing, if we were to say we don't want to include those elevations in the landmark, essentially then the building is just a facade and it could be subject to a facadeectomy in the future.
Okay.
Just one
Yes,
comment.
Commissioner.
I want to say we hear what you're saying and really respect your position on that. This commission and the terrific staff has, there's at least one other project that we've looked at in recent years where the staff's done a great job of working with the owner to come with a compromise that really best suits everyone. And I have a lot of confidence and particularly based on that track record that we can balance what's in the city's interest and what's in the owner's interest.
Just had a question about the interior. So there's the, having been in there fairly recently, there's the kind of the main room when you first cross into the building that we see in the bottom right here, and the auditorium with its atmospheric decoration. But the rest of the interior, for the most part, has already been modernized and renovated, as I understand it. So
Are we talking about in the theater or are you talking about the commercial building?
I'm talking about in the theater, the lobby spaces, the, kind of beyond the threshold of what we see in the bottom right here. So you're in terms of historic fabric on the interior, it's really just the two images that we see on the right here and not the rest of it.
I think I'm not helping my cause right now.
Okay.
Through those doors, the belly wall was restored as well.
Okay.
There's historic plaster that's in there and the portals into the theater itself. There was one remaining of the 5 that were there, and we took molds from that and restored 4 of those inside.
Okay.
Commissioner Rubin, good. Okay. If there are any no further questions, I'd like to let's move to the public comment portion of this. We have currently one comment card that's been submitted. Patrick Rossi.
Thank you for saying my name right. Shorter and quieter than my thoughts. I'm gonna stand. Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Rossi, and I am newly serving as Director of Development and Policy with Preservation Chicago. This is my third Commission Chicago Landmarks meeting. Preservation Chicago is delighted to see the Ramova Theater under formal consideration for Chicago Landmark status. The Ramova is a Bridgeport institution, as you've all just heard, which reopened last December to great fanfare after a nearly 40-year period of vacancy. It really is an incredible turnaround. Sarah, you and your team absolutely should be commended for the work that you've done here. You did a fantastic job with this place. Theaters and performing arts spaces like the Ramova are almost like churches in the way they contribute to their surrounding corridors. They are neighborhood anchors. They're shared community gathering spaces, which bring both immediate neighbors and the broader community of Chicagoans together. Pair this integrity of use with the integrity of the Ramova's highly ornate architectural features along Halsted Street, which combine aspects of classical and Spanish Revival, Spanish Baroque, and the Ramova Theater is a more than fitting Chicago landmark. To say nothing of its iconic neon blade sign and recently restored marquee. So Preservation Chicago fully supports preliminary landmark consideration, and we do wish the new owner operators the greatest success as they pursue their next chapter of the Ramova's storied history. Per this recent discussion that the commissioners just had, Preservation Chicago would support partial interior designation of the lobby and any surviving appropriate treatments. We do understand your concerns, but as you've heard, this group and organizations like our own are looking for a flexible, compromise solution. And again, just to be commended for the work you did in this fantastic building. Thank you.
Mr. Grossi. Yes.
If I could fill out a comment card,
Yes.
just make a quick statement,
Sure.
agreeing fully with the discussion that's been here and also with Patrick Rossi. This was an amazing theater. Oh, thank you. This is an amazing theater. I went to IIT, so this was a place that we visit a lot. The city acquired this building, almost gave it away. We were involved in numerous people going through this. There's a multi-million-dollar gift from the city to have this landmark. I believe it could be even in the range of $9 million. I've seen our landmark buildings like the Biograph Theater. I'm not picking on the Biograph Theater, but it's a Chicago landmark, but it was gutted on the interior. We've got a lot at stake here, the taxpayers and whatnot, to see this a viable community resource for a long time. We've got a lot of money, maybe $10 million at the end of the day of city money invested in this building. And I personally think that any building that the city invests money in at this sort of capacity really should be considered for landmark designation. And it's so important to perhaps consider the interiors, especially the lobby and the theater and the ancillary aisle space, access space as a designated landmark. So we just want to come across as saying we really do support that vision and idea, and especially as a sole landmark in a semi-public space. And just like the Marshall Field store on State Street, we'd really like to see the interiors protected. Thank you for that consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Commissioner Boatright.
Yeah, just for clarity though, for today's vote, I just want to make sure that we're all clear. What we're voting on is the exterior today. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that. And
Unless we revise their.
yeah, but I
recommendation.
also want to provide another layer just for context. So as part of the redevelopment agreement, the owner has provided consent to landmark the exterior of the building in partnership with our desire to preserve this important space, right? And so it's related to a TIF redevelopment agreement. And I just want to make sure that when we're voting today, we are all on the same page in terms of that. Of course, we can make recommendations, but I wanted to be clear on what we were voting on. That's all.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So exteriors only is what we were voting on today. Are there any other
Or
comments?
would I receive written consent, I should say, on it today.
I just have a comment in general.
Mhm.
Earlier in our discussion, there was a comment made about perhaps designating some of the interior of the church in Hyde Park as landmark. I'm just throwing this out for discussion for you later to handle as you think about that whole subject. We sit here often and designate churches as landmarks. And there are onerous financial responsibilities that go with this. And most of these churches don't have the money to handle the upkeep of the exterior. And when you start talking about landmarking the interior, you're setting up an impossible scenario for them to honor. It may sound good, from preservationist point of view, but you have to, the gentleman there talked about the community. You have to talk to the congregational community. What is your capacity? And if they leave the building, it's gonna sit there because no new developer is gonna come and say, there's no repurposing I can do in the interior of this building that'll make money for me. So I think we have to think through all of these things.
Great.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. Any other points of discussion, comments? From the commission, seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to adopt set the preliminary landmark recommendation for the Remote Theater at 3508, 3518 South Halsted Street. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second, by Commissioner Rubin, seconded by Commissioner Tolliver, Commissioner Fair. Yes, Commissioner Boatright.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Yes, and thank you. Yes. And I'm a yes as well, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your stewardship of this building. And we're gonna move to item number 5. Citywide adopt a landmark fund application in Ukrainian Village District Extension Ward 36 Ward, 2238 West Rice Street and 835 North Oakley Boulevard, and Alderman Villegas' ward. Yeah, and I believe Dan Clymer has the presentation.
Great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much. In February, we informed you of 13 projects that DPD conditionally awarded grants to from the most recent Adopt a Landmark application funding round. You may recall that each of the projects are required to come back to the Commission for a vote once our scope and budget are fully developed. One of the applicants, the St. Nicholas Diocese in Chicago for the Ukrainians, representing the St. Nicholas Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral, a contributing building within the Ukrainian Village District Extension at 2238 West Rice Street / 835 North Oakley Boulevard, has finalized the budget and scope for this project. The cathedral is requesting $250,000 in Adopt a Landmark funds for exterior window work, totaling approximately $306,000. For orientation, the subject building is located at the northeast corner of West Rice Street and North Oakley Boulevard, within the Westtown community area and the 36th Ward. The St. Nicholas Cathedral was completed in 1915. And as I just mentioned, it is a contributing building within the Ukrainian Village District Extension, which was designated a Chicago landmark in 2007. The design for St. Nicholas Cathedral blends Romanesque, Byzantine, and vernacular Ukrainian styles of religious architecture. In plan, the cathedral follows the shape of a basilica. Designed by the partnership of Worthman and Steinbach, the building deploys high-quality building materials such as ornamental brick, stone, copper, mosaic, and stained glass, which exhibits a high degree of craftsmanship. Perhaps most striking, the multiple onion domes of St. Nicholas are prominent visual landmarks within the Ukrainian Village neighborhood. As for the proposed project, the Adopt a Landmark work is focused on the rose window on the building's south facade on the Rice Street side. Specifically, the Adopt a Landmark project consists of the complete restoration of the 18-foot diameter rose window on the building's south facade. The work involves carefully removing the individual stained glass sections of the window and cleaning, repairing, and reattaching them back into a newly fabricated steel frame system. A new copper cladding will be applied to the steel frame system, replicating the original wood, which is largely rotted in size and profile. Other work includes associated masonry and minor interior plaster work. Finally, the work will also include the installation of a protective plate glass system over the stained glass pieces. Before you now is an image of the rose window from the interior of the sanctuary. And on the lower right in that circle, you can see damage to the interior plaster walls of the cathedral. Here you can see some existing condition exterior photos and the damaged and rotted wood frame on the rose window from multiple vantage points. The image on the upper right shows the steel tubing system for the window immediately below the rose window, which is undergoing similar restoration work. But it will give you a sense of what will be done to the rose window as well. Finally, on the lower right is a stained glass piece also from the window below the rose window to give you a sense of the detail. In total, there are approximately 1,500 individual pieces of glass on the rose window. And as I said, they will be documented, salvaged, disassembled, cleaned, and reassembled back into the newly built framing system, which is anchored itself into the structure. It should be noted here that the assembled team to fix the rose window for the project include JLK Architects, Berglund Construction as contractor, and DePrato Regali on the window restoration itself. A resolution for you to grant the Adopt a Landmark funds to the applicant includes an exhibit A, which outlines the scope of work and budget, which I just summarized, and which includes $250,000 in grant funds for the $306,000 project. This resolution and drawings were included in your packets. It's important to point out that this Adopt a Landmark project is for a very discrete project, as I just went over, the rose window on the south facade. But the church is in the middle of a very large capital improvement program totaling $6 million that is tackling multiple other projects, including recladding the copper domes, other similar window work, and other projects. These projects are not part of the specific Adopt a Landmark project, but it's important to point out the ongoing work, fundraising, and overall stewardship of this building that the church is spearheading, all while also taking in refugees from the war in Ukraine. In addition, Exhibit A includes the main conditions associated with the project. In summary, the conditions are that all work must be submitted to DPD for prior review and approval. The work must be done in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The applicant will notify staff of any undocumented conditions. The applicant will enter into an escrow agreement to assure the project is completed and paid for in a timely manner, and that the applicant will provide to DPD the necessary documentation of the project so that staff can also give an informational overview of the project to the commission once completed. Should you vote to approve the project, the department will then enter into a written agreement with the applicant that will incorporate the resolution. Again, the project is located in the 36th Ward, and Alderman Villegas has provided a letter of support. Also with me today to help answer any questions from the church are Nestor Popovich, Roxalana Harasmiu, George Matishwin, and Father Pablo. That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clever.
I did my best with the Ukrainian.
That's excellent. All right, I'd like to call for questions for Commissioner, the commission, for David. Seeing, none, let's hear from the applicants. Let's hear the applicants about this project. Welcome.
Thank you for having this present this project to commissioners. It's my distinct honor to be in front of you and try to support whatever questions you may have. Having been
Just introduce yourself.
Nestor Popovich, I'm a long time since childhood parishioner since the 50s of St. Nicholas Ukrainian Cathedral. I've been practicing architecture for many years. I'm in charge of overall project design management. Sales. So I think Mr. Klaver explained everything in somewhat in good concise detail. I think the exhibits support that. 5 years ago, we began this campaign with a monumental task of renovating what we consider a beautiful structure, which is weathered for over 100 years. And since then, we've done a tremendous amount of work, about 3 million plus. We've got another 3 million to go. But in terms of priorities, we take safety into account. This rose window happens to be at the top of the cathedral structure, and its tenuous structural condition is has been deemed to be somewhat tenuous or dangerous. So we supported it temporarily with some structures, but in the meantime, our application is to completely renovate this window utilizing today's code standards with structural steel frame clad with copper so that it patinas into the green in a number of years, and restore each and every piece, 1,500 plus pieces of art glass in their same specific space with new trim, all the lead taken out, all cleaned up. And so all of that scope belongs in this grant that we're applying for you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Hughes?
What's the time frame you guys are taking the process?
So if
I know there's the big holistic project with the roads.
just the road window itself, our hope is to start May 1st and finish 3 to 4 months.
No, 4 months, right?
Oh, yes, we have to because of
Great.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Any other questions, commissioners? Seeing none, I'd like to move to the public comment portion. And we have one comment card that's been submitted. Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you. Ward Miller, the Richard H. Treehouse Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. Thanks so much for having us today. We all worked together a long time ago to make the Ukrainian Village Landmark District a landmark district, along with the extensions, and we've been really honored to work with the community here and the faithful at St. Nicholas Ukrainian Catholic Church towards this day and this gift, if you will, from the city. This is a remarkable building. It's a cornerstone of the district. It's a really wonderful day, and it's really heartfelt when you think of what's going on overseas in the Ukraine. This community here has been so supportive of bringing people here, supporting the efforts overseas, and in administering and caring for and stewarding this magnificent church. They've already spent $3 million, as you heard, on this. Some of the domes have been replaced. This is really a remarkable commitment for the next 100 years to St. Nicholas Ukrainian Catholic Church. So we want to thank the commission and the city and the department for this gift on behalf of all of us in the architecture preservation community and even those in the West Town community. And we very much support this gift.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. I don't see any other public comment cards that have been submitted at this time. And I would like to move to final discussion, commissioners, on this item. If there are any, seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to approve a resolution for a citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund grant for 2238 West Rice Street and 835 North Oakley Boulevard, St. Nicholas Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral in the Ukrainian Village District. We have a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Burns, seconded by Commissioner Fair. Commissioner Boatright?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Rubin?
Yes.
Yes. And Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Yes. I'm a yes, and the motion carries unanimously. For your stewardship on this big.
Sure, thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. And we move to item number 6. Citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund application of the former Mid City Trust and Savings Bank in 34th Court, 801 West Madison Street and to South Halsted Street, and, Alderman Conley's ward, and Dan Clyber again has the presentation of this.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'm here with another Adopt a Landmark application from the most recent funding round. ECG Madison LLC has submitted an Adopt a Landmark application for the former Mid-City Bank and Trust Building. The property is located at the southwest corner of Halsted and Madison Streets on the near west side. The bank building was constructed between 1911 and 1928 and was designated as an individual Chicago landmark in 2012. ECG Madison LLC purchased the currently vacant building in 2022 and intends to convert the former bank for use as the Neighborhood Hotel. Floors 2 through 6 will be the primary hotel floors, with a portion of the ground floor and basement to be used for hotel lobby and service areas, retail and/or restaurant tenants. Tenant improvements will be phase 2 of the project and are not part of the Adopt a Landmark project. The scope of work was reviewed and conditionally approved by PRC in October of 2023, and a Class L for the project was reviewed by the Commission in January of this year and is currently pending City Council introduction. Located in the 34th Ward, Alderman Conway has seen the project scope and submitted a letter of support previously. For a little background, from the post-Chicago fire period up to the Great Depression of 1929, Chicago experienced rapid growth, creating a city of neighborhoods, each with its own commercial and economic life. Independent neighborhood banks played an important role in the economic and commercial development of the city's diverse neighborhoods by providing financial security and loans. Many of these institutions profited from the growth of their surrounding neighborhoods and reinvested in their respective communities with architecturally distinguished bank buildings. High-style architecture and expensive materials reinforced this message and conveyed the perception that the bank was a well-capitalized and cultivated institution. As far as the scope of work, the exterior work includes masonry repairs and tuck pointing as necessary, cleaning of all facades, historic window repairs at the ground level and second floor, repair or replacement of upper story windows as needed, historic door repair and exterior architectural lighting. Roof work will include repair of the third floor skylights, which bring natural light into the banking hall. The interior scope of work includes construction of a new hotel lobby. The historic staircase will be partitioned off using clear glass to meet fire code requirements without obstructing views of character-defining interior features. 2 existing elevators will be repaired and 2 new elevators will be added for safe egress. Hotel suites will be built out on the upper floors from the mezzanine level overlooking the banking hall up through the 6th floor. New mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection fixtures will also be installed to replace the building's obsolete systems. The resolution before you to grant the Adopt a Landmark funds to the applicant includes an Exhibit A, which outlines the scope of work and budget, which I just summarized, and which includes $1.3 million in grant funds for the $53 million project. This resolution and drawings were included in your packets. In addition, Exhibit A includes the main conditions associated with the project. In summary, the conditions are that all work must be submitted to DPD for prior review and approval. The work must be done in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The applicant will notify staff of any undocumented conditions. The applicant will enter into an escrow agreement to assure the project is completed and paid for in a timely manner, and that the applicant will provide to DPD the necessary documentation of the project so that staff can also give an informational overview of the project to the commission once completed. Should you vote to approve the project, in keeping with DPD policy for grants over $250,000, the department will then submit an ordinance to City Council authorizing this Adopt a Landmark grant as well. Again, the project is located in the 34th Ward, and both Dan Luna and Steve Valenziano from the 34th Ward are here with us today. Also with me today to help answer any questions is Craig Millspaw from the Neighborhood Hotel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clyber. Commissioner, any questions for our staff before we hear from the applicant? Commissioner Boatright?
Yeah, so I know this is part of a larger development. Can you talk a little bit about your schedule?
Sure. Greg Millspaw, everyone, with Madison LLC, the applicant.
our brand that we're gonna be operating under is the neighborhood hotel, so you may hear that interchangeably. In terms of schedule, we're actually kicking off non-structural demo and environmental pavement. We started that on Monday. And so we're underway. We have a signed AIA contract with a very reputable contractor in town, Foley and Andrews. They've got extensive history with historic renovation properties, including the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel and the Belton Stratford. And they're particularly qualified in preserving historic landmark designations. Some of our interior space has been designated historic landmarks, so that factored into our selection of them. Looking ahead, with, there are many things that need to fall into place here, but we're anticipating the renovation phase of construction starting in June. And we have a construction timeline of 13 to 14 months, so we're hoping to be open and operational July of 2025, give or take.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. There any other questions from commissioners? Does the owners want to make additional statements?
Well,
on the
I'm
project?
Steve Valenziano with Alden McConaughey's office, and I just want to say he strongly supports this application. Want to see this building reopened to the neighborhood. And it is a strong or an important historic gateway building, both Greektown to the south and West Loop both in Madison. So he really supports the renovation and reopening this building to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Valenciano. Any other questions or parties from the audience would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, there are no other questions. We'll move to the public comment period for this item. And we have one submitted so far, and it's Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you. You've heard from me numerous times today, commissioners. Thank you. Ward Miller with Preservation Chicago. I just want to emphasize that this really indicates the power of landmarks and what you do in the city. This building has been empty for more than a decade, perhaps close to 2 decades, if you will, at the end of the day. And here it is being rethought as a neighborhood hotel. Just a really wonderful asset to the West Loop, where we've seen so much new construction, so much investment. This is a gorgeous building. It's got a most magnificent lobby and ancillary spaces that are terracotta clad. I believe it's Midland terracotta. I'm hoping that interior space is landmark. Forgive me. But this is really a wonderful development. We've worked with Jonathan Gordon and the team at the Neighborhood Hotel. We've seen numerous projects that they've done. These are all award-winning projects in our minds, and we want to be supportive of this gift from the city to this amazing project. And again, want to congratulate the team here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. If there's anyone else who'd like to make a comment, please submit at this time. Seeing none. Like to move to back to discussion from the commission. Does the commission have any points of discussion on this item? Seeing none, like to request a motion to approve a resolution for a citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund grant for the former Mid-City Trust and Savings Bank building at 801 West Madison and 2 South Halsted Street. And do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Boatright. We have a second. Second, Commissioner Rubin. And we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Fair.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Burns, yes. Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. And I'm a yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. For bringing us to reactivate this. And that moves us to item number 7, the permit review committee reports for projects, a report of projects reviewed on the February 8th, 2024 permit review committee meeting. And Deanna Cavallo has the report.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the Permit Review Committee reviewed and conditionally approved one project at its February 8th meeting. That report summarizing the scope of the proposed project and the committee's decision was included in your packets. And this is for your information and for the record.
Great, thank you, Deanna, and Emily Barton has the report. Stepped up.
Staff reviewed one hundred twenty-six permit applications last month. A total of 156 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue the approval or corrections was 4.4 days.
Great work, thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Seeing none, that moves us to our last item, which is our adjournment. There being no further business, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
Oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Permit review committee.
Sure.
We'll begin at 2:03. 10 minutes.
It's always yours.
Usually
Like
it's hard to
a
convince
minute.
that everyone has to do
Something.
something.